Good morning, I'm Father X. Today we'll talk about what a child custody and parenting agreement looks like when you settle out of court. I'll go through many of the issues that need to be resolved in an agreement so that it becomes a lot easier for you to navigate toward that goal. Why does this matter? Divorce court is a terrible option because family court practitioners are too inferior and incompetent to find real solutions for your real problems. Generally, it's better to avoid court if you can. A big challenge with settlement is that you've never done this before. The reality of a settlement is vague and mysterious. One of the biggest roadblocks to mediation is that one or both parents start to think, wow, this is a big change. What does the future look like? What does a mediated custody agreement look like? What are the terms? How do I know if we thought of everything? How do I know if this agreement is fair? Where do we start and what issues do we address? Therefore, I'll go through many of the issues that need to be resolved in a settlement so you can see what a final product might look like. In this episode, 8A, we'll talk about specific terms in a child's custody agreement when you settle out of court. In the next episode, 8B, we'll talk about the practical and strategic considerations to think about because there are multiple parties involved: you, your ex-wife, your child, and the mediator. A key indicator of whether you'll be able to settle is the amount of conflict between the parents. If the parents are able to discuss issues reasonably well, then you're more likely to be able to agree on a parenting plan. But if the two parents are constantly arguing, whether that's driven by one parent or both, then it'll be harder to mediate a settlement. Whether you're in a low or high conflict relationship, this episode will give you some of the key issues to incorporate into an agreement. And I hope you never have to set foot in court. So let's get to it. First, let's talk about the basics of contracts and agreements. A basic concept is that two parties can agree to almost anything as long as it's legal. You don't have to abide by the standard terms a court might give. You can create the terms to address your specific situation. Once you both agree and sign a settlement, you're locked into the terms of that settlement. Be sure not to sign anything unless you're ready to commit to those terms for many years. You'll also add a clause that says, the parents can agree to change any of the terms based on mutual written consent. That means that one parent cannot unilaterally change the terms. That can be good for you or bad for you in a given situation, but overall, that's the fair way to do it. Also, my discussion here assumes both parents are fit, willing, and able to care for the children. It assumes there's no abuse taking place. If those assumptions don't apply to your case, then you would adjust the parenting plan accordingly. Let's discuss basic parenting time. I'll focus on weekly parenting plans using 2-week increments of 14 days. Parenting time is measured in terms of the number of overnight stays with each parent. Seeing your child on Sunday from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. doesn't count. Only overnight stays count. Recognize that 1 week equals 7 days. 4 weeks equals 28 days. And many people forget that 4 weeks is not equal to 1 month, because 1 month is 30 or 31 days. So create either weekly or monthly schedules, but don't mix and match. One option is to have 1 week on and 1 week off for each parent, where custody changes every Friday after school. Or you can have custody change every Monday morning upon drop-off to school. This allows your child to be in one home during the entire school week. And this also allows each parent to alternate weekends. Or you can have more frequent exchanges in a week with a 2-2-3 plan. In this plan, both parents alternate 3-day weekends, and they split and alternate the 4 weekdays from Monday to Thursday. This is good for children under 5 years old because it prevents them from going long periods without seeing the other parent. You can also arrange a 3-4-4-3 schedule, where one parent has a 4-day weekend followed by a 3-day weekend. The second parent only parents on weeknights, but that depends on the work schedule of the parents. Consider that children will find it annoying to live in one place for 1 or 2 days and then be taken away to live at the other house. I think infants and toddlers have a better time with 2 to 4 day visits. School-aged children are likely better off with 3 to 7 day visits. Teenagers may prefer 1 week on and 1 week off. Holidays and school breaks. If you have 50-50 basic parenting time, then each parent is less likely to care about which parent has custody on what holiday, for the minor holidays. So in a 50-50 basic parenting plan, you might add a clause that says, for these minor holidays, the parent who has a child during the basic parenting time will spend the holiday with the child. In the United States, there are 11 holidays per year. If you have a lopsided basic parenting schedule, then holidays become much more special to the non-custodial parent. Holidays can give them more parenting time. You can write a clause that says, this holiday parenting time will supersede the basic parenting time schedule. For Memorial Day weekend, the non-custodial parent will have the child from Friday evening until Tuesday morning, with drop-off at school. And then the schedule goes back to the normal basic parenting time. You can make the same clause for President's Day, Columbus Day, etc. For the summer holidays, like Juneteenth, July 4th, and Labor Day, you may not want to make any special consideration because those days would likely fall under the 8 weeks of summer schedule. For major holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, you might have language that says, in even years, the mother will have Thanksgiving and New Year's with the child, and the father will have Christmas. In odd years, the father will have Thanksgiving and New Year's, and the mother will have Christmas. Be specific about what days and times make up those holidays. School breaks. Depending on your child's school schedule, they might have 2 weeks off for Christmas break and 1 week off for spring break. In a 50-50 schedule, you might add a clause like, for the 2 weeks of Christmas break, the parent that has Christmas that year will have parenting time the first 50% of nights of that break, at least until December 26th at 9 a.m. And the parent that has New Year's will have parenting time the second half of nights of that break. And there can be makeup time if the nights aren't even. If the child has 5 days of spring break and the parents have alternate weekends, you might add a clause like, the parent that has parenting time the first weekend will have the first 3 nights of spring break, and the parent that has the second weekend will have the last 2 nights of spring break. The parent that gets 2 nights will also have 1 night of makeup time taken from the other parent's basic parenting time. Mother's and Father's Day. If Mother's or Father's Day falls during the other parent's weekend, you can create a term like, the mother and the father have the right to change weekends, so they see the child on their holiday. The other parent gets makeup time the preceding weekend. That takes away the need for future negotiations about makeup time. For Father's Day, you want to switch the preceding weekend because Father's Day is in the middle of June, around when school ends. And if you switch for the weekend after Father's Day, that might conflict with the summer schedule. Child's birthday. If you have 50-50 custody, you can let the child just stay with a parent who has custody that day. Some years, it will fall on mom's time and some on dad's time. If your parenting agreement is less than 50-50, you may add a clause that the non-custodial parent has the child the night before their birthday until the morning after. Be specific about what time that is. Summer vacation. Summer vacation will depend on your child's school, but let's assume it's 8 weeks long. In a 50-50 parenting plan, you might agree that summer vacation will be 8 weeks long and each parent will have 2 uninterrupted 2-week periods with the child. In even years, the mother will have her choice of 2-week periods. In odd years, the father will have his choice of 2-week periods. And the deciding parent must choose by May 1, for example, or earlier. When you choose your 2-week period, this by default creates the other parent's 2-week periods. But that's okay because you're taking turns doing that every year. If your goal is to have 50-50 parenting, then it helps to make the basic parenting plan 50-50 and the summer 50-50. If you don't do that, then it's harder to equalize custody for the full year. Here's an example of how a parenting plan schedule can break down for a 365-day year. You carve out 56 days, or 8 weeks, for summer vacation. And then you carve out 14 days for Christmas break. And then you carve out 6 days for spring break. That means that basic parenting time covers 289 days. If each of these 4 time periods is 50-50, then each parent gets 183 days a year. And I'm rounding off because there are 365 days. However, if you have a basic parenting schedule for 2 weeks where parent A has 8 nights and parent B has 6 nights, that adds up to an extra 6 weeks of parenting time for parent A over a full year. If you want each parent to have 183 nights per year, Then parent B will need to have 7 out of the 8 weeks of summer vacation, 49 days versus 7 days, which also ends up being very lopsided. Play with the variables to find what works for you. Let's talk about other key terms and issues that you need to know to prevent headaches down the road. I discussed legal custody for education and medical decisions in episode 2B. I recommend you look at that episode for more details. In general, educational decision-making is important because that parent decides where the child goes to school, and geography matters. You want to be able to pick a school that's reasonable for you to travel to during your parenting time, and to pick the school that's best for your kid. Medical decision-making can be important if your child has serious ongoing medical needs. But for most healthy children, the doctor makes most of the medical decisions. So medical decision-making is usually less important than educational decision-making. If you disagree on a decision, how do you decide? It's customary to give each parent final decision-making authority on one of these two topics. Your clause might say, the father will consult the mother on major educational decisions for the child. In the event of a disagreement, the father will have authority for the final decision. To be honest, if the other parent has final authority, your opinion really doesn't matter because they can ignore your input. Agree on where and when to pick up and drop off the child. You don't want to get into frequent debates about who's going to pick up the child and where, especially if you have a high conflict relationship. Generally, pick up and drop off at school is a good plan because it only requires one parent to be there. If the child isn't in school, or if it's a holiday, you can add a clause that says, the mother will pick up the child at the father's home to start her parenting periods, and the father will pick up the child from the mother's home to start his parenting periods, and you share this responsibility. Maybe you designate other people to pick up and drop off, like babysitters or grandparents. As a general rule, it's better to avoid having new significant others or spouses involved in pick up and drop off because of potential jealousy. But do what's best in your situation. Add a clause that says, pick up and drop off can be changed by the mutual agreement of both parties by email or text. Here are 6 key clauses that can help prevent problems down the road. First, neither parent should belittle or insult the other parent in the presence of the child, nor allow any other person to do so. Second, each parent is entitled to the medical and educational records of the child. Each parent will sign any necessary documents for providers to ensure the other parent has access to this information. Third, both parents have the right to attend all of the child's sporting events, school events, parent-teacher conferences, and religious ceremonies, and make sure you attend these events. Fourth, if the child is hospitalized for any reason, both parents have the right to visit the child during the hospital stay. Fifth, both parents may telephone the child daily. Sixth, if the child is traveling with one parent, that parent shall provide, in advance, an itinerary to the other parent with flight, train, bus information, and address of where the child will be sleeping. Right of first refusal. Basically, if one parent is unavailable to care for the child during their parenting time, then the other parent can have the right to care for the child during that time, instead of getting a babysitter or relative to care for the child. Think about occasions where one parent is working or traveling without the child, or in the hospital overnight. If you make arrangements that minimize paying babysitters, that will leave all of you more money for your kids' college education. Extracurricular activities. If the child has an activity that covers both parents' time, then you probably want to make a clause that says each parent has to take the child to their activities during that parent's time. Relocation. Life changes, and sometimes people move away. What happens in that scenario? Maybe you add a clause that says if one parent moves away, they lose equal custody and become non-custodial. Define the point where you just live too far away to be able to take the child to school back and forth every day. Maybe that's 30, 45, or 60 minutes of commuting. Depending on the distance, you may have to renegotiate so that parent now has alternate weekends or increased summertime. Special occasions might include funerals or for relatives, graduations, weddings, or severe illness of relatives. You might add a clause that during special occasions, parenting time will be given to the parent who has the funeral or wedding, etc., if that parent wants the child with them, and the other parent gets makeup time. Child support. Don't sign a final agreement unless you know what your resulting child support obligation might be. The rules will vary from one state to another, so you must research this. Some states issue child support at 17% of your income for one child and 25% for two children, which is often far greater than the actual cost of raising kids. If one parent has 49% of the parenting time, that parent might pay the full amount of child support. But other states take into account parenting time, where having 49% of parenting time will lower your child support amount. Even with 50-50, the higher income parent might pay child support. You need to know what that court-generated outcome will be and the financial impact that comes with it. If the court-determined child support is so high that you can no longer afford to live where you live, then you need to anticipate that consequence. Also, many states have standard language that parents must include in a private child support agreement. This varies by state. For example, your state might require the agreement to say, both parents recognize the standard support formula would calculate X dollars of support, and we agree it should be Y dollars. So if your parenting plan says parent A will pay parent B Y dollars per month, that might not hold up in court without the required language. And the last thing you want is to agree to pay $300 a month and then have the other parent go to court to throw out your agreement and then have the court decide that you owe $1,000 per month. So while you do your parenting plan, also write a separate agreement for child support that takes into account your state's required language for child support agreements. But you don't have to use your state's child support formula. I recommend you calculate an amount that makes financial sense for your family if you want to have one parent pay it all. Finally, think of other issues specific to your situation and bring them up in your negotiation. And make sure the terms of the agreement are clear and detailed. If the language is confusing or subject to interpretation, that can create headaches down the road. These might be the darkest days of your life. They were for me. I'm making these educational videos to help you navigate this nightmare. If you subscribe, you can get updates when I post more videos. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends who are in a similar situation. If you like, subscribe, and share, it'll also help the YouTube algorithm get this message out to more fathers in our position. Also, if you find this information helpful, please support this channel so I can make more videos. You can donate via my YouTube channel's About page using PayPal or Venmo.